Hi everybody, this is Paul Cooper with Totes and Notes, and I'm doing a quick video here on note terms and definitions. It's probably good that we all agree on what the definitions are so you understand what we're talking about, and then when other people are talking to you using industry terms, you're not completely clueless. Or worse, you think you understand and you don't, you make a horrible miscalculation. So with that, let's get started. Start with what is a note? Note's a legal document that obligates a borrower to repay a mortgage loan at a stated interest rate during a specified period of time. Well, let's explain what a mortgage is. It's a legal document that pledges a property to the lender as security for payment of debt. And a loan is a sum of borrowed money that is generally repaid with interest. So putting this all together, you probably already knew what a mortgage was or had a pretty good idea. Generally, that's what someone's going to have on their home. And that's going to be the borrowed money that they use to pay for their home. And then the note is going to be the actual physical legal document of the mortgage, stating all the terms of the mortgage, the time period, the interest, and things like that. So when we're talking about notes, we're generally going to be talking about mortgages. You can have notes on other items, but for us, we're dealing with real estate, so it's generally going to be the mortgage on a property. Now, interest, APR, and WTF. There are a lot of different terms that people use, and so let's cover them. Interest. It's what a lender charges to borrow money, the part of the borrower's monthly payment that goes to the lender after the principal has been applied against the loan balance. And the APR is the annual percentage rate, and this is different than the interest. The APR is the true cost of borrowing money, which includes the total finance charges added to the principal amount. So these can be things other than the interest rate. Like let's say you don't pay for the closing costs up front, you don't pay for the title insurance and things like that up front, then they're going to roll that into your loan. So it's actually going to be, what you're paying per year is actually going to be higher than just the borrowed amount. Like let's say you're borrowing $100,000 at 10%, then it's going to be higher than that 10%. Because of all the other financial charges rolled into the loan. Now, if you don't have those rolled into the loan, then your interest rate's your interest rate, and that's what it's also should be your APR. So people get confused sometimes because they'll be like, "Oh, I'm getting this great interest rate," and then there are all these other fees and finance charges and other garbage thrown in, and they end up paying quite a bit more per month and per year than they were originally expecting. So that's the difference between interest and APR. Now, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years balloons, how long does it take? Well, each loan can have different terms. The most typical mortgage nowadays is generally going to be a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. And but they can be 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. They can be just about any different time length. And those loans will be broken down into monthly payments. And so the term is just the length of time it will take to pay the mortgage in full. And so it's pretty straightforward. It'll usually be a year and then translated into months for those years. And then amortization is the repayment of a loan over time with each payment. There's a reduction of both principal plus the interest. And you also hear about amortization schedules. You'll be looking at that when you're buying notes because that'll let you know how much you're going to be paid each month. I mean, that shouldn't fluctuate. But as the note's paid down, the percentage that will be going towards interest and going towards the principal will change. Generally, at the beginning of a loan, most of the money is going to be going towards interest and very little of it's going to be going towards principal. And then towards the end, it's almost the exact opposite. Most of it will be going towards principal and hardly any of it going to interest. And then one of the outliers that you'll see for different types of terms, it'll be a balloon payment. Maybe it's a 5-year with a balloon payment or 10-year with a balloon payment. And so you'll be paying a reduced rate. Well, here I'll just read the definition. A mortgage where there are payments over a period of time, but the final payment is a lump sum, which is quite large compared to the previous payments. A lot of these will also kind of be interest-only payments with the balloon, so they'll be paying the interest on the loan, but they're not paying the principal as well, so the payments are significantly less. And then towards the end of that term, you're now having to come up with the difference. So, you could be paying, couple $100 a month just for the interest, and then the balloon payment at the end could be, $100,000+ that you're now having to come up with. These are kind of the things that people got in trouble with during the Great Housing Crisis. They were getting balloon payments. They were getting variable rate mortgages and just signing up for stuff they didn't understand. Balloon payment, it's designed to where you're either going to have cash to pay it off, or you're going to be refinancing out before the balloon payment. Because if you can't pay it off and you can't refinance out at the balloon payment, there are generally going to be a lot of penalties and fees, or they may just repossess it from you. It's not a good deal. If you're going to ever use a balloon payment for anything, and you need to make sure that you're going to be able to pay it off or refinance it out. Next page, note industry terms. So this is kind of going to be our bread and butter and what we need to focus on. The first term you might hear is color, and that's kind of the discount or pricing guideline that the seller is looking for. So, if you're on the phone with an asset manager and you ask them, hey, what's the color, or, what's your pricing guideline, or he tells you, hey, this is the color. It could be like, hey, they're looking for 40% on these notes, or 50 or 60 or whatever, and that could be of different parts of the notes, or it could be the UPB or the unpaid balance, or it could be the fair market value of the actual home. But color is going to be a term you'll hear quite a bit, or just the pricing. Then another big term you're going to hear are first and seconds. And you're going to have to decide probably which one you want to focus on. Most people aren't going to focus on both. Some people would like to do a lot of seconds. They end up doing a lot of first just because there aren't many of them. But a first is the first position mortgage. It's the primary loan against the property and takes precedence over other mortgages, equity lines, or other liens. So it literally is the first position on the encumbrances. And the second is just what it sounds like. It's the second position. It's a loan taken out behind the first mortgage. So priority is always given in order of the liens or mortgages on the property. So first is going to be first, and second is going to get paid second. And that's why you got to be careful when you're looking at owner encumbrances, that there aren't things in between them or that would take precedent over what you're going to buy, because then you may not get your entire amount back. The first one's going to be paid first, and then whatever's left over is going to cascade down to the other positions. Then a secured loan is a loan that's attached to collateral, and pretty much everything that we're going after should be secured. An unsecured loan is that isn't attached to collateral. And the only time you should really ever be dealing with this is if something gets foreclosed on. So let's say you buy a first or a second's foreclosed on, and you're not getting your entirety of what you're owed, then the loan's not dissolved. It's not necessarily gone. It could be wiped out from the foreclosure. It just depends. But it could still be there, and now it's not secured by the property, though. So now you're going to have to sue the borrower to get a judgment to try to collect on that money, and it's a lot harder because there's nothing to take back from them. The car loans that are secured by the cars, so as long as they still have that car, then you could come after them and repossess the car. So if you're going to buy, secured credit is worth a lot more than unsecured credit. If you're going to buy unsecured credit, you should really not be buying, or unsecured debt, you really shouldn't be buying it for a very high price. I think the going rate for most unsecured debt, like credit cards and things like that, it's like 5% or less. So it's you should be buying it at a big discount. And I guess if you want to do that, then your strategy, kind of like with seconds, would be you need to be buying really large pools. That way, if you do ever get payoffs, they're kind of equalizing everything for you, and they're evening out everything, your peaks and valleys, because a lot of them aren't going to pay. And then the secondary mortgage market. It's the buying and selling of existing mortgages, usually in pools of several loans. That's kind of what we're in, folks. We're in the secondary market. We're not originating them. We're buying stuff that's already originated and already exists. And, I put down there usually in pools of several loans. Pools are going to get you the better price. It's going to open the doors to a lot of other asset managers because they just want to get rid of a lot of stuff. That being said, though, you can buy onesies and twosies and cherry pick here and there. Now we've got ROI, RRR, yield, IOU, and FU, buddy. So what does all this mean? You're going to hear a lot of these terms, a lot of abbreviations, and it's important you know what people are talking about, and so you're using it correctly. So return on investment is probably the most common one, and that's going to be the one you want to use. It's how much profit or cost savings are realized as a result of the investment. So that's basically going to be your return. And this is backward looking. So this is how much you've actually made or lost on your investment. This isn't, what you're expecting to make necessarily. That would be yield, and yield's the profit from an investment, normally stated as a percentage of the amount invested. Yield is forward-looking, so that's what you're looking to make. That's not what you have made. Return is what you have made. Otherwise, they're very similar. They're usually going to be a percentage, and most of the time, you're going to use it as an annual percentage. Then the internal rate of return, or IRR. You're going to hear this a lot. If you're not a business, and even if you are, doing our business, you probably shouldn't use it as a term because it's pretty complex. You're generally going to need a financial calculator. It's the interest rate at which the net present value of all cash flows, both positive and negative, from a project or investment equals zero. Internal rate of return is used to evaluate the attractiveness of a project or investment. If the IRR of a new project exceeds a company's required rate of return, that project is desirable. If IRR falls below the required rate of return, the project should be rejected. So basically, it's a formula that you're going to use on a financial calculator you bring things to zero, and it gives you a percentage. So let's say your business is like, oh, well, we need to make at least 10% for us to invest in anything. It's a way that they can calculate that. It's complex. It's stuff you're not really going to use, and really you can calculate return on investment a lot easier, or what your expected yield is, and use one of those. I mean, if all being said, you could do the yield or return on investment, and if you're looking for 10% or more, you should be able to find that out pretty quickly without having to use IRR. So it's important to know what it is, but it shouldn't be a term that you're going to be hearing or using a lot in this industry or this business.